Good evening, Fiji, and welcome to For the Record. Now, this evening, we're being joined by the Fiji Taxi Association Acting General Secretary, Mr. Harish Chandra. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, and welcome to For the Record. Now, taxis, we use this every day, and I'm sure you at home also will be, I'm sure they'll be ready with some of their concerns. But this evening, let's talk about you. Fiji Taxi Association, Mr. Harish Chandra, that's a new name associated with it. We're so used to hearing of Rishi Ram. When did you take on the position?
Thank you very much, Pidali, and also thank you FBC TV for bringing the Fiji Taxi Association to the limelight. We have been having a great support from FBC team for the record for the last 2 years, when we had our AGM that was abandoned in Lautoka in 26 March 2012. And since then, I have been acting General Secretary for the association, and I've been handling all the affairs of the association with the interim committee that has been running the affairs of the Fiji Taxi Association to date. And the Fiji Taxi Association has been very active. It's 65 years in existence. The 65th AGM was abandoned in Lautoka due to some issues pertaining to the financial matters of the association. While the finances were all in order, there were some discrepancies that needed to be resolved, and they have all been sorted out. The financials are now being prepared, and the association is in the right direction to move on with the AGM coming in March, around the 23rd of March. Yes, we are here to represent the taxi operators and taxi owners Fiji-wide, and all the issues pertaining to operations of taxis and running of taxi business, the issues in dealing with the Land Transport Authority, with the government agencies, with the municipal councils, and all associated the members who are Fiji-wide. Like we have branches all Fiji-wide, and we are coordinating the members Fiji-wide, assisting them, bringing them support. So yes, Fiji Taxi Association is very alive and is handling all the affairs of its members Fiji-wide.
Well, I can feel that you've held that on for some time now, and you're glad to let it out. Now, Mr. Chandra, we'll just break it down a little bit and ask you now, how has it been for you as the General Secretary?
Yes, when I took over the reins, and actually it was before the AGM in March in 2012. I actually took over in September and October of 2011 when Mr. Rishi Ram had to step down due to some issues and comments that he made in the media. And the association could not elect a General Secretary in the elections AGM, so I continued. I have traveled Fiji-wide, and I have also traveled internationally, and the way I see the taxi industry in Fiji, it was not running to the standard that the taxi industry should be in Fiji. So looking at the affairs of the members Fiji-wide, how they operate and how they run the business, and how they get the support from the Land Transport Authority, from the government agencies, and mainly the municipal councils where the taxi base issues and things are coming up. So dealing on all these matters with the support of the committee and also the support of the general public, we were able to address the issues mainly with the Land Transport Authority. We have had certain committee meetings, and we also had the consultative meetings with the Land Transport Authority, with Taranuma sessions, even with the CEO. So we were able to make headway with the issues that affected the industry.
Okay. We'll touch on that later on, but let me just ask, okay, the Fiji Taxi Association, 65 years in operation. What would you say your members, your taxi operators, the Fiji taxi operators, is it Fiji-wide truly? Like, do you have members all over the country?
Yes, we have members all over the country, but not all the taxi operators are members of the association. It's more like we have according to the LTA records, the taxi number plate, the last taxi number plate running around is LT7604 something. So that means there are 7,604 taxi permits that have been issued, and out of that there may be only 4,000 taxi owners who are operating the taxis, but the rest, they are struggling to have the taxis back on the road, or there are few who have got the permits but they're unable to get a car to get the taxi on the road. So if you take a virtual figure, we are around 4,000. and we are representing almost like 3,600 members Fiji-wide. So the association is like representing half its members, and we are trying to make headway to get more of the taxi operators to become members of the association, so we can address their issues. So far, the association has been handling the taxi industry matters, and the members, those who are not members, they have been benefiting more than the members have been benefiting, because whatever the headways we make, the non-members are also getting the same benefits. So here we have free riders who are taking advantage of us. But there are more things that can be done for the taxi operators if they all become members, because then we can negotiate with a lot of suppliers who are willing to offer discounts, who are willing to offer fuel rebates, who are willing to offer discounts on spare parts, and also the banks who are willing to come on board, the insurance companies that are willing to come on board. So it's a very broad and wide factor that we need to look at to assist our members.
Would you say that your members, have it grown in the past few years, or has it not, or has it remained stagnant? Or?
No, the membership has remained stagnant. There was a small reduction in the members. Although they remain members, when they need, they run to the association, they pay up the membership just to see they can get the assistance. But as far as the association virtually has not been able to function the way it should have been functioning, because the national office has not been able to operate due to the acting capacity of the committee members and acting capacity of the acting general secretary. So now with this forthcoming AGM, if the elections are held and the rightful members are elected, then they should appoint office members who can run the affairs of the association at national level, and then the branches can be supported from the national level. So the Fiji Taxi Association has to pull up its socks. There are a lot of things to be done. The improvements are to be brought about with the national office before they can start assisting the members Fiji-wide.
Okay. Well, we're about to head into a short break. Thank you again for all that you've just said. We'll further clarify a lot of what you've just said and also pursue and look at what your memberships are in the Fiji Taxi Association. We're headed for a short break. We'll be right back on For the Record. You're back on For the Record, and we're talking about taxi services here in our country, and a very important person in it, the Acting General Secretary of the Fiji Taxi Association. Now, just before the break, you talked about what it needs, the Fiji Taxi Association. You're headed towards the AGM in March. And now, let's look at the membership. Let's just look at, now, who qualifies as members? It's the taxi operators. Am I correct?
Any taxi operator who is a permit holder. If you like, there may be persons who have more than one permit. So it will be only one person who is a permit holder. So any taxi permit holder who is operating a taxi business, if it's like a company who has got a fleet of taxis, its management can become member of the association. So it's basically, the association is only for the taxi permit holders and owners or operators of taxis in Fiji.
Now, you mentioned before the break that there are also members who only come to the association when they need things. Yeah?
Yes.
Now, as always, yes, this is quite common in various associations. Yes. Now, and I guess Fiji Taxi Association not escaping that too. But we'll just talk about this. Now, you've got the AGM coming up. Now, the work that the Fiji Taxi Association has, you've mentioned, needs a lot of work in terms of administration. And we've got that. But what about the members? What do they need to do for the Fiji Taxi Association?
See, when you run a taxi business, at the moment, the composition is like the companies that are operating in Fiji, there are about 250 plus companies that are operating. Whereas there are individual operators who are more in numbers than what these companies are. So these individual operators, their basic knowledge about running a taxi business, about what the understanding of the taxi business is very limited. They just rather retire from some form of employment, or they come from some background where they are able to acquire a taxi permit and they want to run the taxi business. Now, to run a taxi business, it's not that easy. It's a very risky risky business. You need to know the know-how. You need to have all the abilities and all the understanding because it's a public service,
That's
and when
right.
you do public service, you need to get the support of the public. So if you can't give that service to the public, you will not get the business that you want. For example, if you have a taxi running with noise coming inside, dust coming inside, and all sorts of things falling apart from the taxi, nobody would want to take
Obviously.
a taxi over it. So here you need to educate our members who are taxi permit holders, who are taxi operators or taxi owners. They need to be dispersed with knowledge from the people who have been in the study for long, so that they can share this knowledge with other members who are coming in. So here we can educate and we can support them to run their business.
Would you say this has happened in the past?
No, this has never happened in the past. There has been very limited. What happens is when you go for a permit renewal, when you go for a taxi driver's license renewal, PSV license renewal, the Land Transport Authority only holds a one-day course for the taxi permit holders or drivers when they go for renewal. That's called the defensive driving course.
Right.
Apart from that, there is no institution in Fiji that is running any courses about this taxi business or about the taxi driving or about the public service transport training. There is nothing. There is no institution in Fiji that has.
And this is where the Fiji Taxi Association is supposed to come in.
Yes, the Fiji Taxi Association. Now what we are doing is, when we met with the Attorney General in the one of our AGMs, we brought this issue up, and then this was also taken up with the Land Transport Authority, with the Ministry of Transport. We produced even a video in the past. We presented to the then minister, but eventually the video disappeared and nothing was forthcoming. So it was like a cooperative structure that was planned to be set up by one of the companies, like mainly the Region Taxis was planning to set this to assist the members who were within that area. Where it's important, like when you have individual operators, you are in an area with a limited number of people, so you can only get limited business. But whereas you come under umbrella, where you have a radio installed system, we have a RTA operated by individual taxis are linked in one unit, and it's like a door-to-door service or from a business point of service, where the business could be well coordinated, and the operators will make a lot more money than what they are making at the moment, because the drivers are struggling when they are not in the area. They can't get business. They rent to other areas where they are breaching their permit conditions. So these are serious issues that need to be addressed for the taxi industry itself from the beginning. But this has not happened, and now we want to put this in place. Land Transport Authority has been in discussion with us, and I think the Attorney General has called a stakeholders meeting where he's trying to get the views and comments from the general public, also all the permit holders, and all. The sessions were held in Singatoka, Nandi, and Lautoka, and I think more sessions will be held in February, where the Attorney General will look at the whole industry to get the views of the permit holders, and this will also concern the RSL, the higher minibus, and all those omnibus operators. So Fiji-wide, he's holding consultations to get the views, and we are hopeful that the industry will be addressed in the future.
How well are you working with LTA?
Well, LTA, we have had a regular consultation meeting. We have Talanoa sessions with the CEO and his team, with the legal team, with his PSV team. Manager PSV, Marita, has been very helpful and supportive. She has been cooperative in providing the minutes of all our meetings and all the discussions we had. You know, what happens is that suddenly there's a change in LTA in the legal team. When now someone new comes in, they try and bring in issues that are not being followed for the past. One good example is the age of the taxi.
Right.
Suddenly they brought in the age limit. They said 12 years over, the cars have to go out.
12 years and over, that's now the,
That's not the condition. That is not in the LTA. That's nowhere. Even there is a High Court ruling on this one. LTA can't use this age limit anywhere. The condition is that it's the discretion of the vehicle examiner who will decide on the condition of the vehicle whether it can be on the road or no.
But there are some vehicles that we look at as public service vehicle users.
Yes.
We look at and we know that they are not supposed to be on the road.
Not supposed to be on the road, exactly. So it's the age of the vehicle, it doesn't matter, because there can be a vehicle which is 20 years old, but it's in excellent condition, like almost new. But there's another vehicle which is only 4 years old, but it's falling apart. So it's the discretion of the vehicle examiner to decide whether the vehicle is in a condition to be used as a taxi. So before they do a taxi pass, they have to do a suitability examination of the vehicle. And if the owner is not satisfied, if LTA rejects his vehicle, vehicle, he has the opportunity to ask for a supplementary examination of the vehicle, which the LTA will allow. And if the third party, whoever examines the vehicle, for example, PWD or independent garage operator who has been nominated by the government to do such a supplementary study of the vehicle, they can recommend whether the vehicle is fit to be on the road or not. So the age limit is totally out. The LTA can't use that condition anymore. The LTA has to comply with the code of the LTA Act, in where it says that the condition of the vehicle has to be in running condition or up to the discretion of the LTA officers to determine that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chandra. We're heading to another break. We'll continue this interesting discussion on taxis, or at least the future of our taxi service in our country. Right on For the Record. You're back on For the Record. We're talking about taxis, an interesting topic that I'm sure we Fijians discuss every day. With us is the Acting General Secretary, Mr. Chandra, who's been kind enough to spend some time with us and is, very committed to this, I can see. Now, let's talk about the code of conduct of taxi drivers. We've talked about this in the past a lot, and what's the situation now?
Well, the public service taxi drivers especially, we have a lot of issues with them at the moment. Like about 80% of the taxi operators in Fiji, they use taxi drivers to run their taxis. Even those who are operating it themselves, at one stage or another, they will give it to a driver because they need the income to supplement their loan repayment or to get the necessary income so that the vehicle can be examined. But the main issue is with the drivers is the attitude. It's like 60% of these taxi drivers have got attitude problem. They're like very so used to having the same mannerisms where they are sometimes very rude to a customer. Yes. Sometimes they are very
they can be the opposite to another.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And if a passenger sometimes requests for assistance, sometimes they are very lazy to get out of their car, open the door, or open the boot, or sometimes even the way they dress up.
Yes.
And the worst one is the cigarette smokers. While it's banned to have cigarette smokers inside the taxi, there are some who smoke, so they are able to tolerate the driver as well. But imagine when you smoke cigarette, the smell that goes with you, and you get into an air-conditioned taxi, and that smell, if you don't smoke, can become unbearable to another member. So the taxi drivers who are driving taxis, if you are taking a cigarette break, please ensure that you use freshness, something, just to be back in the car. And then in this hot weather, we have sweating. Some drivers, when the smell they carry around with them can become unbearable for the passenger as well.
That is very true.
Yes. And also, then we look at the hygiene inside the taxi, the dust, the dirt on the seat, and all those things. See, the taxi drivers, when they're running a taxi for an operator, they have this requirement where they are able to make the income for the company, then they have to make income for the fuel, then they have to make income for themselves. So here they try and run as much as possible, and at the same time they don't get time to clean the car, they don't get time to have the car checked, or they don't get time to see what is needed inside the car, or how they can give a proper service.
What is the Fiji Taxi Association looking at? Are you looking at educating?
Exactly. That's exactly what we are looking at. We are going to now approach the University of the South Pacific. We're going to approach the Fiji National University or any training institution where these things can be incorporated into the curricular activities of like vocational studies, where these drivers can be given a certain level of training. More so, the association is for the operators, not much for the drivers, but at the same time, I think driver is an investment for the operator. So the operators at one stage or another will try and get these drivers together so they can get that training where they can bring professionalism in this industry. Like if you go overseas in Australia, New Zealand, Switzerland, or any overseas countries that I've been to most of them, the taxi services that I have got from them and what I compare in Fiji is totally different what we give here. We have tourists coming in, and they are our eyes and ears. Especially these taxi drivers are the first point of contact. They get off the plane out of the airport, and they want to get into a taxi and get to. So these taxi drivers are the ones who feed the information to these tourists, what is happening around our country. So if we don't give this training to these taxi drivers, we are not promoting our own country. We're not promoting our culture. We're not promoting our tradition. We're not promoting what's going around in our country. So here we want to see that these drivers, the taxi operators, and everyone gets the national training So an awareness program, so they can be having the knowledge, the ability to discard this or promote these things to the general public. As well as at the same time, we have members of the public service, the members who use the taxi industry, the ones who use the taxi, they also need to be educated in one way or another, where some knowledge needs to be passed on to them. So when they need a taxi, they know how to contact them, where to contact. What we have seen is if you walk around any town, suddenly someone will step out of the footpath and wave a taxi down. And a taxi, without looking at the back or front, the taxi will just stop. Or he will make a U-turn just because he wants to pick a passenger. So these things, there needs to be enforced, there needs to be procedures made. We are glad to see that Suva City Council has put taxi drop-off points. This is to accommodate the needs of the senior citizens or citizens with disabilities where they need support with wheelchair drop-off. So at least the taxis have the ability to unload the passenger more safely.
What are you looking at in terms of those legislations of stopping taxis? Are you looking at places where you are restricted from just doing that? Yeah?
It has to be, because we are going to get on to with the municipal councils. We're going to ask the local government to allow us to sit in with the municipal council administrators in their meeting, so we can bring these to their attention. We can give them proposals how this can be addressed. And yes, if we get the support of the government and the Land Transport Authority, we are on the right target and right direction to get professionalism in the taxi industry.
Well, let's just jump back into income. You said about taxi operators and taxi drivers running taxis. There's only certain amount of money that they can raise to get the fuel for the taxi. And then they have that income to fulfill. Now, can you just make a few comments with regards to how much should really a taxi driver be making?
Well, a taxi driver, at the minimum, he has to work about $120 a day. Which is a lot of money in comparison. He has to give some operators who are giving the taxis for day service. The drivers need to give around $40 to $50 a day in income. So to make an income of $120, they also need to fill a fuel of $30. So you have $50 in income, $30 in fuel, and then they need the $40 for take home pay. At least they need money to take home. And then they need some money to bring in the fuel for the next day, for running the taxi. So there is almost like $130, $140 a day that each driver needs to make to survive in this taxi industry.
Is this something that you're also looking at, the Fiji Taxi Association looking at regulating?
Yes, it has to be regulated. It's the laws that are at the moment, the labor laws that are enforcing onto the conditions of the drivers, these things, suddenly the Ministry of Labor will turn up onto a company or an employer saving them notice that this driver has lost a complaint now working hours, because according to the labor laws, working hours is 8 hours, and they're saying now they can go up to a maximum of 13 hours. And then the drivers who go to run to the same Ministry of Labor, they file a case where they say they've been running the taxi for 18 hours. So the Ministry of Labor doesn't look at that 18 hour when they know that the driver has already breached the law by himself by driving 18 hours when the LTA Act only allows 13 hours driving time. So there are serious complications where these things need to be made clear in law and in act where they can be enforced, and they have to put procedures in place. But at the moment, the labor laws are not very clear on the taxi industry. We have had so many issues and matters that have gone before the courts. And I'm sure the Ministry of Labor will come on board with the association to address this issue.
I'm sure. Now, is there a place, that we're running out of time, very quickly, is there a place where the public can lodge their complaints with the Fiji Taxi Association?
The Fiji Taxi Association is Fiji-wide. We have branches all Fiji-wide. The branch addresses and information will be disseminating to the public soon. And the main national body is located at 88 Jerusalem Road in Nambua, Suva. And I am the Executive Director of Region Taxis, and anybody Fiji-wide knows the Region Taxis, and it's easy, you just dial 5000 and they'll give you my contact number.
Thank you very much for joining.
Most welcome to contact us anytime, Fiji-wide.
Thank you very much for joining us on the show. And again, he is also my the taxi operator for my taxi service. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for this evening. Thank you very much for joining us on For the Record. For comments and questions, please email us on fortherecord@fbc.com.fj. Join me again next week for more discussions on pertinent issues to all Fijians. Good night, Fiji.
Thank you.